Hi, this is Dave from the E-commerce in Plain English podcast, and this week we're joined by Sam Phillips from Easy Logic Limited to discuss fulfilment for your business. Now, me and Matt have been discussing this, and we see no value at all in you spending your time putting things in boxes or bags in order to get them out the door. And this is where fulfilment can really work for your business.
Sam, tell us, what have you been up to?
Okay, well, I worked, my sort of career started after university in premium brand sort of advertising, planning and buying marketing campaigns, and I always wanted to sort of run my own business. And I got quite involved in eBay during that time, and I was buying and selling stuff. And I got involved with this chap who was selling a beauty product, like Botox, but rather than having injections, you stick plasters on your face.
Okay.
That's interesting.
And he wanted some help setting up on eBay, and I thought, this is, not going to happen. This is just a bit of a crazy product. But, I said I'd help him out. He managed through some connections to get articles in the Daily Mail and Evening Standard after we sort of set him all up. And because apparently Rennie Russo swears by them. So the celeb angle was sort of picked up by the papers. And with it overnight, he sold out. He had about 20 grand's worth of stock, and it just went out the door. So, and that kind of got me thinking, buying and selling stuff's great, but where the money is probably having sort of rights to products, bringing them into the UK and selling them.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of developed an idea for a distribution business looking at when the proliferation of the internet and the ability to better source products became a lot easier. So I sort of trawled the internet looking for new products that had just sort of launched in the States or wherever they were and brought them to the UK. And I managed to found a startup design company in the US who were designing this children's nightlight, emailing them backwards and forwards saying, I've got a distribution business, really interested in your product. And obviously at the time I had nothing. And he flew over from the States to meet me. And, I snuck out in my lunch break to go and have a meeting with this chap. And we had a meeting, did the deal, handed my notice in my work the next sort of, I think I stayed for another sort of month, maybe worked out my notice. And then set up the business on the back of that, got the product into the UK, got it into John Lewis, Selfridges, Heels, all the sort of high-end, sort of mid to high-end sort of retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty well. And I had other products that I introduced into the lines, and then I'd say for 4 or 5 years it was really good. And then I got one of the other products I was distributing to a larger company who obviously saw that I was doing really well with it and came in and pinched it off me, which was nice. And then the company in the lighting range, I supplied a children's retailer, and they went bust about 2 days after I delivered it into them. And it was one of the biggest orders I'd ever supplied to them because they'd just merged with a large European retailer.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out they were quite heavily involved in Iceland when Iceland went bust, and it all sort of imploded slowly after that. And I tried to keep the business going, but and once I'd paid everyone off, I had to shut it down in January last year.
Ouch. And what do you do now then?
So in the meantime of doing all that is going on a bit, I opened up, I was working distributing oak furniture, and I opened an oak furniture shop and did that for a year. And then while I was doing that, I sort of had the idea for fulfillment, because I was still buying and selling on eBay, bringing products in from the US that probably weren't massively available in the UK and selling them. But because, the banks wouldn't lend money to a startup, it was all very difficult. I couldn't really afford to put a huge amount of money behind distribution, because when you distribute something, you have it made in China, you have to put down a deposit, it takes 30, 40 days for it to be made, then 30 days to ship, and then you supply it to a retailer. The retailer won't pay you for 60 days. So you're out of pocket for almost 4 months. And unless you've got very good cash flow, it's very hard to do that. So I needed a way of selling products online in sort of quite, decent volumes, but without having to put the money behind it. So that's when I sort of came up with the idea of the fulfillment side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd previously looked at using a fulfillment company when I was selling what I was on eBay and Amazon, because I was just spending all my time packaging stuff up and not enough time on the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a number of logistics companies, had chats with them, and they were all enormous, great big warehouses. Well, some of them weren't particularly big, but most of them were decent size. Forklifts, bombing up and down, lots of people all running around. And I just thought the amount of, I was turning over probably a couple of grand a month at the time. And I just thought the amount of stock that I'm doing here is just going to get lost. I'm going to end up paying a lot of money for a service that I'm probably not going to get a personal touch to, because for them it would be, pocket change. It wouldn't have been a big deal for them when they're turning over sort of 60, 70 million on sort of one account. So I came up with the idea of setting up something myself and focusing and making it relevant for small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of where I am now. I've got a 15,000 square foot warehouse. I process orders for a range of companies. Some of them turn over about sort of 10 to 15,000 a month, but some of the smallest 50 quid a month.
Wow, so you're right at the opposite end.
Yeah, I sort of price it according to the client that I've got, and because traditional companies do pricing based on a process called RHD, which is receive, handle, and distribute. You have warehousing fees on top of that, and any time your stock goes through receive, handle, distribute, you get charged. And there's various ways of pricing it, but most of them charge you small sort of pence per action fees. So when they receive in a load of stock, they'll charge you 15p an item. And the chances are they'll probably have a minimum charge of maybe 25 quid. So for a small business who, nobody likes to keep a huge stock holding at the moment because of cash flow, that can be a real pain, because if you're having weekly deliveries or even daily deliveries that don't come in together, you'll get charged 25 quid per box, essentially, if it comes in and they're not together in one consignment.
Yeah.
So what I do is I look at the business that I'm working with. If it's a large business and they've got a lot of stock coming in, then you do have to charge almost a pence per action, because you've got to count out all the items and have them entered onto stock. Whereas for a small business who may be having a delivery of maybe, a box of maybe 10 items, it's a bit unfair and unreasonable, and, there's no way they could finance it to charge them 25 quid for that one box.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I don't charge any receiving and I don't charge any handling fees. Around the warehouse. All I charge is a percentage on the dispatch cost that it costs me to ship out, and typically that's about 40% I charge on top. But because I do have really good volumes and I use Royal Mail packet post, I save sort of 30-40% anyway on over-the-counter rates. So effectively, for some of my clients, it costs them what it would to do it to just the simple postage cost would be what they'd pay, but then I'm doing all the service for them anyway, and I provide basic sort of packaging materials. If they've got any specific packaging requirements, then I can add that on to the percentage.
Wow. Okay.
And if they're doing a lot of large letters, then I install maybe a minimum per dispatch as well. But more often than not, at the moment, most of the clients, it varies from couriers to first class to special delivery, depending on where it's going and what the service is. And obviously, I'm global all around Europe, and that's me.
Sam, there's one thing which I've just picked up from our conversation so far, is that as an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, you'll just pick yourself up and go and do something else.
Yeah, and I think what was quite good for me was having the distribution business, because I was very young, I was super enthusiastic. I was in London, it was going really well. I made a huge amount of mistakes, and that enabled me to start up this distribution business and actually know exactly how to do it pretty quickly, do those mistakes and get processes in place that would work.
That's sorry. If you want the label of an entrepreneur that you can kind of almost stamp it upon yourself, is that it doesn't matter if you make a screw up or something happens to the one business which you're working on. It doesn't matter if it goes completely Pete Tong, because you're just I'm just thinking of the people which are listening to this podcast as well. In many ways, it doesn't matter if it all goes wrong, because give them a couple of weeks' time, they would have thought up with a new idea, a new business structure, and just gone and done it. So hat tip to you.
I'm not going to say that it was quite straightforward. It was a really, really difficult time. Closing one business, laying off staff and stuff is not fun. And then having to, my son had just been born, so it was a tough old time. And then, luckily now things are starting to turn around again. And obviously with the economy, the way it has been, it hasn't been easy. But as I said, things are turning, and it's all looking a bit more positive.
Happy days. So let's just clear exactly where I stand in this. Is that as a business grows, you've got to go through the you have to go for a proof of concept stage. Just make sure that the product sells, and the learning process with the marketplaces, for example, when you run website or PPC, doesn't matter. You've got to learn the marketing piece and make sure that there is a demand for the products which you've got.
Yeah. But
a lot of companies, what they'll do is that they'll take their processes which they had before, which worked, and then try and scale them up. And from my own experience, I know a couple of guys which these guys don't run small businesses. They're multi-million pound businesses, and they are still looking for the de facto pick, pack, and dispatch process. And for me, the irony is it doesn't exist. And sorry, go on.
I'd agree with that. Sorry, talk over. I'd agree with that. It's almost what I do with my clients is I make it bespoke to them because everyone's different. Really hard to say, right, okay, I'm going to, just charge you £1 per order to do it all. You can't do that. You have to look at exactly what the client is, how much stock they've got coming and going, what their orders are, how many, because a lot of my clients do sort of wholesale as well to retailers. So you have to look at the split between individual and retailer and work out where the money is going to come from and make sure that they can afford to do the pricing that you're putting to them. And not suddenly they get a huge invoice one month and think, well, where's that come from?
Yeah, they know what's going on. And I've got the Amazon FBA fees up in front of me on my screen right now. And you've got order handling, you've got pick and pack unit, you've got weight handling, you've got box weights, you've got different product types, and then that even gets even more complicated if you include the European Fulfilment Network as well. So it's just so complicated.
But for a large company that are turning over millions and millions of pounds, doing thousands and thousands of orders, I can see Amazon being quite an attractive one for them because they know that they'll get the service. They're not too precious on their product. They can afford for things maybe to get damaged or whatever. But at the end of the day, they know that they've got the pricing in place. They'll be able to afford to pay for it. It doesn't really matter. They just need to know the service is being done. But for small businesses, they need to know that they're getting a much more one-to-one service. Their stock's being looked after because I know from experience that small businesses are incredibly precious about their stock, and they need to know that it's being looked after in a clean warehouse, and it's not being thrown around and all that sort of stuff.
So that's your niche in the market, Sam, isn't it? You're doing this fulfillment for the small companies who are
small to new businesses.
Where FBA isn't an option for them, really.
No, exactly. And it's also so confusing. You give them that price list and they go, all right, let's sit down and try and work out what it is we're going to have to pay at the end of the first month. I don't even think Amazon would know if you went to them and said, these are our products. How much was the rough number of orders we're going to send out? What are we going to end up paying? Until they've done a few months and working out how things work, then they'd be able to start planning ahead. But that's a big learning curve to go through to then work.
Definitely.
Can't afford to do it, but they've got all my stock. So that's an interesting one. And also, Matthew, you mentioned, and you pointed to that link on the wholesale forums about that chap who was doing the TV stands. And, he was using...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Using Amazon FBA. He was turning over a lot of money. He was doing sort of 30,000 a month, I think. But Amazon rang up his factory in China and said, we're now going to be your sole UK agent. Don't sell to the house or whatever it was. We'll put a massive order in. And so this guy, when he went then to place a reorder, was told that the factory was no longer dealing with it.
Amazon's bully tactics.
But that, they're the sort of stories that I hear, more and more.
And Amazon and specifically, so when this pod goes out live, to give you a bit of history for this, in the past 2 to 3 weeks, that's one story of many. Amazon have had a bit of a beating in forums lately because of situations just like that. There are quite a few negative ones, but I want to point out one very positive one where it was a chap called Dave, and you can read about this in the forums. And that was the forums on Last Drop of Ink. And in there, Amazon actually gone and sourced a very similar product, copied the exact orientation of the images and pretty much the whole description, and they still couldn't sell as much as what Dave could do. So Amazon contacted Dave and said, we want to stock your product. We gave him a few warnings around it. Basically, don't give them all your stock. Just play it and make sure it's on your terms. And now he's now selling more than what he did before. So yeah, Amazon's taken a bit of a beating, to be fair, on the left-hand side of the page. But on the right-hand side of the page, there are some really good positive stories with it as well.
They could try and take your business away, but if they can't do it, they'll get you on board.
Yeah, basically that. You've got to love Amazon.
I think the problem is through that though, Matt, is they are they're creating this paranoia now, because as you see in the forums, there's a lot of businesses who are being contacted directly by Amazon saying, oh, come and sell on .com, and people are hesitating because they think, what if Amazon like the product that much, they do exactly that. They steal the product and cut them out of the loop.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a bit of an interesting one on Amazon's
Yeah.
part, really.
We'll try and keep this on topic of fulfillment.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Amazon is one great big market research tool. Is that, and again, this is the fundamental difference between eBay and Amazon. eBay is purely a marketplace. Amazon is a retailer with a marketplace for it, and that's the difference. And again, that's why in many ways Amazon standards are generally much higher for the customer requirements than what you would find on eBay. There is a little bit of disparity between those two. And if you were Amazon, would you not treat it as a market research tool? Would you not be thinking this, that, oh, that product range is doing well, and then go off and see if you can source it yourself? It makes, if I was Amazon, I'd be doing that. So let's be frank here.
You can't blame them for being a business.
No, you can't.
Whether it's ethical or not to small businesses, that's another thing.
That's, and again, if it's yourself which is being affected by it, it's something different. So, going back to the topic of fulfillment, Sam, I was chatting about that. I'd been through this process for a new startup here, actually in Bristol, and we looked at fulfillment companies, and there's some really weird pricing kicking around. Sorry, the process was, what was it for the handling process?
RHD.
So what was RHD? It was charge, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how. So you've got receiving fees, which are normally around. It varies enormously, as you'll discover if you go and talk to people. And yeah, I think the market is changing a bit for small businesses away from this because of the growth in online selling. They are, I think, starting to change a bit more. But traditionally you're looking at sort of 15 to 20p an item receiving, same for handling, and then you'll be given a dispatch price on top. And some of them will make you buy your own packaging materials. Some will include it in. But it's really confusing because if you get your clients start paying for packaging materials, it just gets, again, more confusing. It's just like throw it all in. Yeah, so traditional company, they'll take your stock in, it'll be put on a shelf somewhere, and they also, your warehousing fee is pretty standard, and I sort of charge it either per pallet or per shelf location. Is kind of how it works. And obviously, if you've got a lot of products with different colours, some logistics companies will actually split the individual product by colour out, make it really easy for the pick and packers to know exactly which they're putting in a bag. And obviously that increases your costs massively. What I do is on all the pick and pack notes that get printed in my warehouse, they have a photo on them. So I'll know the colour and I'll know what it looks like. So that kind of really avoids that. So I can normally mix colours if it's quite straightforward. And it doesn't pose too much of a problem, and it keeps my clients' prices down as well.
Okay. So when we were just chatting the other day, is that there was a big eureka moment, or that dumbstruck moment. And then again, going back to we're doing the research in Bristol, is that we'd gone to see one fulfillment company down on Feeder Road, and then we'd gone out to see a much larger company called Expediators, which had exactly that same pricing structure and some other bits in there as well. And we were walking around their warehouse, and they had 43 or more clients running at the same warehouse. I was looking at the chat running around. One of them had used a barcode scanner, another one was just using a sheet of paper. And I asked that one question, which was that, do you not use the same process for all your customers? And they came back.
You can't for some, because some of them, it all depends on how much stock they've got and whether all their stuff's barcoded up. Yeah. A lot of my clients don't have fully barcoded stock, and that can cause problems.
Exactly, and it was just like one of those moments, just like, there is no perfect process. The perfect process is the one which works for that customer's products and for that customer's business.
Exactly. It's got to be tailor-made.
There wasn't one process which works. And again, for massive scale dispatch, then there is. But it's been automated.
Amazon, they've kind of standardised it as much as they can. But, for a small business, you don't know where you stand.
Yeah, you don't know the process, and there isn't going to be a process which is you'll go, just use that and you'll be fine. It needs to be based upon where your orders are being sourced from, what your products are, size, dimensions, other attributes like barcode, if they're being barcoded or not barcoded, color, whether they're colors or sizes, for example, as well. That there isn't really just a process which can follow, and that's what you were saying, is that it's whatever's needed to the client's requirements.
Mm.
I mean, I hate to keep going back to Amazon, but they pretty much make you fall in line with how they work, don't they? They give you a range of barcodes that you have to print on the boxes and on every product in order for it to be stored in their fulfillment centres in a way which fits in line with how they work.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, I'm thinking about a company which makes media products. So they make training courses on CDs and DVDs. And for them to put those in, and they're based, I'll just say over to the right, so I don't want to mention who they are. And they have manufacturing companies in the different countries which print the discs off and then send them off. The problem for that what they stumbled into is that those companies weren't then prepared to barcode them and then send them into FBA. So that we had to try and find somebody local on the ground in the States, in the UK, which those items could be then forwarded on to for these labels to be put out, entered onto the product, and then to then get them into FBA. It was a unique situation for it. But the thinking aloud is that something which came to mind a few moments ago was that in the UK, we're being suggested that we should look at cross-border trade, and eBay are changing the way that the anchor stores are now, so that you're listing, if you've got an anchor store, then you can have European exposure to your products. But that actually works in reverse. Sam, do you have any customers which come from, say, within Europe or the States, which you distribute for?
At the moment, no. I'm talking to a couple.
Okay.
I have done in the past.
All right, because one thing which I think can add that loud, and again, this is maybe a thread for you to follow, is that in the UK we're being told that we should be doing cross-border trade, or CBTs. eBay like to give an acronym to, but this actually works in reverse. If we're being told this, in Germany they're being told exactly the same thing, and the same in France as well. That this is a two-way street, and the same for Australia. This actually works in reverse, so that if we were a manufacturer or a distributor in Germany and they need to get products on the ground in the UK for faster distribution, the services which you would offer would expedite that dispatch network for them. And again, if you can handle larger quantities, then that could be, it doesn't have to be large quantities. They can do proof of concept and not spend an absolute fortune in making sure that it works and take it from there.
The issue with doing cross-border trade is great if the product has a certain price point and therefore you can charge a decent amount for shipping.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a £10 item, you're going to want to send that standard airmail around Europe, but you've then got the issue of it not turning up, and then So for me, I do bits and pieces around Europe. I do a lot of army stock through one of my clients, which is quite good because they're normally big rucksacks. They're big, they're heavy. And they're about £200-300 each, so an extra £30 to make sure it's fully tracked all the way there is not a problem. But one of my clients does baby accessories, and they do little sort of baby rattles, and we've sold a couple around Europe. None have gone missing; they've just gone standard airmail. But it's that risk that you kind of almost have to take that it's going to turn up. And you've got things like International Sign For and Air Shore and various services like that, but they're sort of £10-15. They do is a big margin. As long as you can charge that to the customer, then you're fine. But it's finding the right balance between the product value, the postage, and then the service that you want to send it as.
Yeah, because this is the time lag. It's not like it's not like the UK with reality 3 days, and the item will be delivered with them for first class.
Yeah.
The problem is that different countries have different postal systems, and it's not only it's the time which it takes in the UK we'll pick on Germany for example, to then hit Germany to go for their customs if it's required, hasten to add, or if you're going outside of the EU as well, to then actually be them delivered on to the customer. Again, the Germans are good; they're pretty well organised as you would expect. But if you do that into France, I'm thinking of a conversation 2 years ago with Sue. She was just going bonkers with the French postal system. They get the items out. No, they weren't on strike. But they use these funny mailboxes, and of course they're these little post boxes. Of course they don't check them, it was just driving her nuts at Christmas time because she sent out all these items. They were out there in the network, but unless you're paying an absolute premium, then you had no trackability to it. So, and again, the risk factor in that, the chances of the item getting lost in transit and not being delivered when there's multiple parties involved, so when it goes into Europe, is much, much higher compared to just raw mail in the UK.
Just ask a quick question, Sam, regarding your couriers. Obviously, if you're looking after the dispatch for a lot of small businesses, does that not give you the ability to leverage better prices with certain couriers?
Exactly. And that sort of filters through to raw mail as well. I mean, as I said, raw mail packet post, so we save sort of 30 to 40% over the counter. And for couriers, our preferred courier in the UK is Interlink, because we get the DPD, you get the 1 hour delivery window, which is a massive sort of.
It's a big thing. I love it when Amazon tell me something's coming with those guys.
Yeah, because you get your hour delivery window.
Exactly. Yeah.
99% of the time they're bang on. I've been using them now for about 18 months, had no problems. They've been really good. And a next day, depending on the size of it and the weight, that can be as low as £4.30 for a guaranteed next 1 hour delivery.
That's good.
It is really good, and there's no weight limit either, so you can go as heavy as you want. To a customer who does children's bikes, and they often sell to they do wholesale and individual, and they sometimes sell to schools, and they might send sort of 30 or 40 of these bikes, and it can weigh 100 kilos. 100 kilos, you can put that on a pallet and send it, but you may be looking at 48 days, and then it's a bit of a headache when it gets to the other end, that they've got to maybe handball it off the van if they haven't put a tail lift on it, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But with Interlink, you can go right up, as much as you want, as long as each box doesn't weigh over 30 kilos. You can go as heavy as you want. You pay your nominal fee up to 10 kilos, and then it's about sort of 30p a kilo after that. So
again, that's another massive benefit of using a company like that for small businesses who can't negotiate these sort of postage rates, especially if they've got slightly awkward products, like say, which are heavy or large. Or...
the uglies, as they're known as.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
One of the big things to consider as well for any small company setting up and selling online is look at your product range and work out that if somebody was to buy half a dozen things or 2 things, would they all fit in a box? If they wouldn't, what would fit in a box and what doesn't, and then how would you send that out?
Yeah.
And if you're not using a courier, you've then got Royal Mail issues to consider.
Sorry, that was a bit loud. I'm fine. Sorry for the outburst. I'm on the parcelforce.com site right now, and the reason why for the outburst is that I've just put in a 10 kilo package from my postcode to a Manchester postcode, just within the UK, and Express 9, so that's next day by 9 o'clock, is £36.08 plus VAT. If we ignore that for just a moment, and that was my outburst, I do apologise.
Does that mean my Christmas present's coming late this year?
Yeah, I think it might be. But looking at Express, that if you were just an over-the-counter person for Parcelforce off their website, then for Express 48, so that's 48-hour delivery, it's £12.75 plus VAT. If you wanted 24, then that's £16.08 plus VAT again.
But there are some really good websites out there for couriers, Parcel and Parcel to Go, places like that aggregate. So and they'll give you your best price. They can be good. And, I even use those sometimes. If I've got a parcel going to Japan outside of Europe and I need to know, one, which couriers will send it there, and two, what the prices are, they can be really useful, because there's no point having an account with say, FedEx or DHL abroad, just for the sake of having to do, half a dozen, because you have minimum monthly spend commitments with most couriers like that. And, even for someone like me, it's not worth
Sam, I love it. Yeah, an aggregator using an aggregator. Yeah. That is so entrepreneurial. It's coming back to UK carriers, you've got a benefit because you are aggregating across multiple customers, and you can pass the savings on to them. Exactly,
and I do. And as I said, I just charge a percentage on the dispatch fee. So a 1 kilo package over Royal Mail will cost you, I think it's about £4.30. Through me, it'll be £2.57 plus VAT. So you get your VAT back as well, which you wouldn't if you go over the counter. Okay. And then you've got for a small business, you've got to schedule in going to the post office. Kids to pick up from school and other issues like that. it can be a bit of a headache, especially if you've got a lot of stuff to take in there.
Absolutely. And again, even if you've got collections, I think it's about £9 a day, which used to be for me.
It's 75. It's 750 quid for the year, I think, to have a collection.
Well, that's gone up a bit.
So it's about £75 a month, basically.
Yeah. And so you can have collections, but I think we still go back to the point that I proof of concept is fair enough. Ship it out your bedroom or your office if you're doing it at work, or whether they know that or not, it's different. But just make that so the point in at time when somebody should consider fulfillment is that if the business model works, that there is the margin in the product and you can sell it and you've got across the first couple of barriers. At that point in time, I see personally no value in spending your time as a business owner sticking product into bags when there are so many other things which you could be focused on.
Yeah. But the trouble, well, it's not the trouble, because I totally understand this, and this was one of the problems that I had, was making sure that your product is going to be looked after. It's going to be packaged up properly and sent out with the love and care that you do, because it's your product, your business. You want to make sure the customers are receiving it and going, wow, that's beautifully presented, excellent, love the company. And you've got to make sure that is reflected in your fulfillment house.
Yeah, and Sam, sorry to talk over you there, is that you're absolutely right. So as far as the customer's concerned, so let's put Dave, you're selling product X, and I've been and bought that from you from eBay, Amazon website. It doesn't matter. I've been and made that commitment to buy from you. And for you, from my point of view as a customer, is that the actual purchasing of the products and the listing, all the other stuff which came before it, is only one part of the equation. The shipping part is also part of the representation of
the branding
business to me as the customer.
Yeah.
And it's such an important part in there, and I understand why. And again, I was there was one of the mistakes which I made when I ran my own business was that I should have got rid of fulfillment. There was no point in me spending half the day sticking items in bags.
Yeah.
It was a complete waste of my time.
It takes up a lot of time, and also by using a fulfillment house. If you're doing multiple platforms, for me it's a service I offer my clients, and there's a platform that use it. Is if they're selling on eBay, Amazon, and their website. It's so important to have the stock linked between all three. So you sell one on your website, your eBay and Amazon shop automatically reduced by one.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse than overselling and having all these disgruntled customers who are expecting a product, especially this time of year. They think, oh, brilliant, that's the present for so-and-so. I've secured it, it's coming, brilliant. And then they get a phone call a day later or, an hour later, whatever it is, saying, sorry, I haven't got that in stock again. Here's your refund. And then they've got to go through the process again to try and find their product.
Okay.
And that really put customers off.
And
so it's really good having all your stock and all your out channels all linked together.
Mm-hmm. And Sam, that's something which you've got running in the background as well. Have you got software which keeps the different channels in tow for them?
Yeah, I use LinWorks.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a really decent entry level, because there's a lot of fulfillment and sort of stock management, order processing software out there, but a lot of them will start at like $5,000. Just to have it set up, and then you've got all the training associated with it. Whereas LinWorks, I found, is very user friendly, very easy to use, and for small businesses, actually, it's really good because it's free up to 100 products.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a year ago. Whether it's still the same, I assume it is.
They've changed the pricing now. They actually have a free package, so you can collect some. Yeah, it goes from free to £380 plus VAT or whatever it was. Yeah. And you could pay for extra users if you need them.
There's different levels depending on how much you do. And then they've got, you can either have it hosted on your computers or you can have it hosted in the cloud. And if you have it hosted on the cloud, they have a service called Lin Live, which is an automatic listing tool across eBay and Amazon. Mm-hmm. And you can go in there and you can do all your listings, and it'll, you do templates and you can post it, and it can make the whole listing on those two sites very straightforward.
Mm-hmm. LinWorks, topic for a different day. Okay. Jason wasn't able to join us in this call with myself, Dave, and Sam, and in a few moments we'll be jumping across to a conversation which I had with Jason. And Jason's actually been through this process himself. He's got I was with Jason as he was going through this, and some of the things he says are just absolutely amazing. So let's jump over to the conversation now with Jason, and we'll see. And Jason's the chap who has actually been through the process of sitting there in his house, putting items into bags and shipping them off and worrying about that and spending half his day or more trying to fulfill his products. And Jason went through the process of finding a fulfillment company. And then it's very interesting what he says when the transit van came to collect all his products, and what his analogy for that was very, very curious. And sorry, I don't want to spoil it for you. And he's actually now been through that process and used a fulfillment company for a period of time. His business model's now actually changed, and there's no longer a requirement for a fulfillment company. But I don't want to spoil too much, so we'll jump over to the conversation with Jason now. Jason, thank you for joining us for this podcast. Our first question is, you recently outsourced your business to a fulfillment company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience? And it was like giving away a child, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I do remember that conversation with you. And it was like giving away a child, only from the point of view that I was really, really close in the business because I was doing everything myself. And that includes all the listings, working out the products, ordering from suppliers, and then actually shipping the orders out of the door. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, it was my baby, and I didn't really want anybody else touching it, or I didn't believe that anybody else could touch it in the way that I did. So the biggest sort of thing with giving it away was actually giving up that product and the ownership of that product and trusting somebody else. Mm-hmm. Making sure that they, you know, their standards were the same as mine. Whether they're good or bad, I don't know, but they were my standards. So yeah, that's why it kind of felt like giving a child away, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you had a van turn up from your home and then actually collect it, and it must have felt quite a, I don't know, was it relief when it drove away?
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of both, really. I mean, there were boxes everywhere, pallets of the stuff. And I spent several days actually packing it all up and boxing it all up and putting it on pallets. So when you suddenly see all of that in front of you like that, you suddenly realise that actually you've just boxed everything up that you own, that you send to your customers, and effectively dumping it in the back of a van and giving it to somebody else.
Bit of a scary one, that one.
Yeah.
So what made you take the plunge from fulfilling your items yourself to using a third-party company?
Because I was doing it all day, every day, non-stop. It was very, very busy. And all I did was spend the whole day packing boxes, collating orders together, printing off packing slips, and sticking it all in the right box. And then you sit around and you hang around and wait for the courier to turn up at whatever time they decide they're going to turn up. It's quite restrictive from that point of view because you always have to be there. It wasn't a 5-day-a-week job. It was a 7-day-a-week job, really, because people still order on the weekend. If you're doing it yourself and you leave it till the Monday, you've got the whole of the weekend to pack and deal with before you even start on Monday's orders. Before you know it, it's 6 o'clock Monday evening and you're getting ready for Tuesday's lot. So it was round and round and round. You spent all day packing boxes and realised that you've not actually done anything else, or nothing of major sort of importance in the business.
So that leads me to my next question, which was that what did you do with the extra time that you saved? Because if you weren't packing up all the items throughout the day and you suddenly had all this extra free time, what happened then?
It was a good time actually to just slow down. I seem to remember just slowing down for a little while. Not for long, a few days maybe, really, and having a look at the business overall, deciding on the activities that were going to be of most benefit. Because if I'm paying somebody to pack it, I've got to use that time wisely, otherwise I might as well just do it myself. So it's just making sure that the products were right, and it gave me a chance to see what was selling, things that had sat on the shelf for a bit longer than you'd want to, but you just didn't know because you were so busy packing boxes, you didn't really have the time to see that. Also, it gave me time to talk to suppliers. I negotiated better deals at the time, which I'd never really had chance to do. And you're always getting suppliers sort of ringing you up or emailing you with new products, but you don't really have time to look at them and see whether they're a good add to the business. So it meant doing more in the business that should have been done before, rather than sticking stuff in a box.
So what one piece of advice would you give to somebody else who's considering outsourcing their fulfillment? And what would they need to look out for?
It's a really difficult one to answer, really. I think, looking back, I think a lot of it was based on gut feeling initially, because I don't know that I actually knew what I was looking for. It was easy for me to understand my products, and it was easy for me to know what to pick and put in the box and how to pack it properly so it wasn't smashed in the transit process and all of those kind of things. And I knew those areas that you needed to concentrate on. So I think the biggest thing for me was the worry that somebody else wouldn't do it properly, or they wouldn't take the necessary care over my product against somebody else's, whether they're just sort of chucking it in boxes and then billing you at the end of the week. So that was the kind of important one. So a lot of it was based on gut feeling. I did go and see all of the companies I spoke to. Spoke to the owners or the managers, had a look around, watched what the staff were doing with other people's products and how it was managed. There's one company where I found that there's loads of boxes outside in the pouring rain, so they didn't get my business.
So you would would you definitely recommend that you actually go there and see their operation and see what's actually happening on the ground?
If at all possible, yes. And to be honest with you, I guess if you're talking to a company and they're hesitant to let you go and look around, then I'd probably want to know why anyway.
Yeah, that would raise some questions. There might be security. But then if they're using bonding or something like that, then it's locked away. Yeah. So
so they can get around it. Yeah, I think overall, my first thing was looking at the price, and I wanted to know what it would do to my bottom line. Some companies gave the most ridiculous prices. Maybe we're just too small for them and they weren't interested, so they're trying to get rid of you. I don't know. But most of them sort of came out at pretty much the same sort of average overall. So it was predominantly getting down to the point of, do I like them? Do I trust them? What do I need to do if I change my mind? Am I tied in with them? How do I get out of it? How do I get my stuff to you? Do you need it in a certain way? Some companies wanted barcodes on everything, even the outer boxes, which I couldn't provide in all of my products. So they instantly were not suitable just because of that, because my suppliers just couldn't meet their requirements.
Of course, that's where it would stop. You wouldn't come to you, whereas it normally would have done. It's going straight to the fulfillment company.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of them just wanted it in certain ways. Some of them preferred it to come in on a specific day, so that they wanted you to get all your ordering into them on a certain day. Other things to look for are how long does it take them to unpack and check your delivery and get it on the shelf ready for sale.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because some of them were 48 hours, and if there was a problem, some of our suppliers required notification within 24 hours.
So that you could then dispute the actual order with what had been received.
Yeah. So, if they're going to take 2 or 3 days to get it on the shelf and ready for sale, not only you're actually losing time, but you might not have a comeback with your supplier if there's a problem with the original delivery. And another thing that I found was that a lot of companies have hugely varying levels of stock auditing. When you've got the stock yourself and it's in front of you, it's not so hard to look at a pile of products and think, well, I need to order something. Whether you know the specific number or not is a system issue within your own business, but you can at least see it. When it's somewhere else, you don't know what it looks like. You don't know how full the shelves are. So I was very, very specific about getting daily stock updates, what's gone in, what's been added to the stock, what's been sold, and therefore what's the end stock result. Some companies were very, very poor at that, and some companies were brilliant.
Okay. And the one which you chose, were they brilliant or were they poor?
They were very good.
They were very good. There you go.
Very good. So it was all a consideration. When you go and lose all of those products to somebody else, you've just got to know that the stuff is there and it's safe. And did somebody drop something and break it? But just forget to tell you. So you think that you've got the stock there, you go and sell it and they tell you you've sold out. You need to know why or where that stock has gone so that you can write it off or charge them.
Jason, I really appreciate your insight there. Thank you ever so much.
Not a problem.
Cool. We'll wrap out there. Happy days. Yeah. Jason, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you ever so much.
That's all right.
That was something I was going to say. Funnily enough, it was something I was telling to someone yesterday, and it's this old adage that we've spoke about many times. It's where you end up working for your business, not on your business.
Yeah.
And that, you know, like I said, spending hours putting things in bags is time that could be spent marketing, in other areas.
Yeah, driving the sales.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something which is very easy to get sucked into when it's your baby, when it's your business. You want to give it that personal touch.
But there isn't. But the point is that someone like Sam or company XYZ do also care about it because it's their business to make sure it's Sam's business to make sure that the piece from when the customer they've been and received the order that Sam cares about it is just as much as what you do, and will then fulfil it onto the to the customer at the end point because Sam understands firsthand that it is representing his customers.
I think that's where you've got an incredible niche where you've got that you can build that personal relationship with the small and medium businesses, and they're not just going to be like you said earlier, pocket change for a massive fulfillment company like Amazon or GSI or whoever else.
Small cog in a massive machine.
Exactly, yeah.
Get looked after. Yeah, and it is all about relationships as well, and making sure that everyone understands what's happening and they're all in the loop, and you're talking to them regularly, making sure that they're happy with everything, any things that you could be doing differently or things they don't like, all that sort of stuff. Just keeping everything fresh and just keeping revisiting it and making sure that everything's running as smoothly as it can.
Hi, it's Matt, and I just wanted to say thank you to you to listening to this podcast. Our stance is very, very clear, as in that we see no value in you putting items into bags, and especially if you're the entrepreneur in the business, that your time could be far, far better spent working on your business rather than in it. And with Jason's scenario, he gained so much more time in his working day, and it allowed him to then move on and to do what he's doing right now, which is something completely different. And also to Sam as well, giving him the insight into his history. And Sam's the prime example of guys and girls just like you, where it's okay to fail and stuff happens, and you can take the entrepreneur out of the business, but the guy's still, or the woman's still an entrepreneur, and we just look at the world differently. And that's really, really apparent with Sam. Also, just to say a special thanks to Dave. I don't thank Dave enough, and with your help, can you do me a favour? Is that on the bottom of this post, on the Last Drop of Ink site, please, can you just let Dave to say thank you for it as well? That would be highly appreciated. So this week has probably been the busiest week that you've ever had in your business, and I hope it went really, really, really well for you. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Matt out. Cheerio.